Hi everyone and welcome back. Mindy here, and today I actually have two cards to share with you, so my video is a little bit longer than normal. I'm playing along with the Simon Says Stamp Flickr Group's challenge over there for this week, which was ink blending, and I love me some ink blending, so I got a little bit carried away. I had this idea in my head. I've wanted to do this for a while, and this was to make like flower galaxies, combining flowers and galaxies. So that is what I'm going to be starting with today. This first card was actually my original idea. So I wanted to make a galaxy. That was going to be the first part of it. So I'm taking some wilted violet and just blending that right onto the cardstock. I'm not too worried about how well it's blending in. Obviously, you can see some of the circular marks left from the blending tool. And then I also took some twisted citron. I was trying out a different color combination for my galaxy background. And I'm doing this on some Bristol smooth cardstock. And I actually end up not really liking how the twisted citron turned out, but I'll show you what I did with that in the end. So I'm just going to continue adding some color to create my galaxy. I'm using the Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide, and I'm going to fill in all of my white space with this. This is one of the new Distress Oxides, and I hadn't used it yet for a galaxy, so I wanted to try this. One thing I did notice is that with the Distress Oxides, they are a lot more faded back a little bit versus if you were to use regular distress inks to make your galaxy. I think they would make the colors pop a little more. Both of them are gorgeous, and obviously the oxides blend better, but I did notice that as I was making this background is that with the oxides it does kind of set it back a little bit more faded of a look. So I went ahead, did the Blueprint Sketch, and now I'm coming in with the black soot, and I'm going over a lot of the edges and over some of that Blueprint Sketch. I'm not covering up those colors that I laid down, the wilted violet and the twisted citron, because I wanted those to pop off of my card. So I'm not going to cover those up. I'm just going into them a little bit. And it is looking pretty crazy right now. I know it does not look like a galaxy, but it will towards the end. And then I just like to clean off matte, especially with that black soot, because it just gets everywhere on my fingertips, on the paper. So I just get that out of my way. And I'll come in, I'm going to do some water splotches. So I spray some water off on the side of my craft mat, pick that up with a paintbrush and flick that all over my card. And I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes, really let that soak in so it's going to pick up that ink. And then for my stars, I'm just taking some white paint, putting a little dab off on the side there, and I'm going to spritz some water down again. And then I'll mix that up with my paintbrush. And I'm going to apply it to a clear block. This is just how I like to add my flicks of white paint. There's lots of ways you could just flick your paintbrush. You can actually put the paint right on the block too and mix it on your block, but this is just how I prefer. I like the scatter of white paint that it gives me when I do it this way. And this really helps give you the feel of that background. And you can add as much or as little as you want. So now for my flowers, I'm using the stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, Even More Spring Flowers. This has a lot of gorgeous flowers on here. I went ahead and stamped these out onto some white cardstock, and then I cut them out. I believe there's a coordinating die for this that I do not have. So I actually used my scan and cut to cut these out. And I just had the couple leaves. So the leaves I stamped twice because it was the same thing. And then my big flower for off on the side. And I wanted to give it a little bit of something. I didn't want it to just be white on there. So I'm coming in with a W3 Copic marker, because I did stamp these with some Copic friendly safe black ink. And I'm literally just doing some flicks from the inside of the leaf out. I'm not worrying about shadowing. I'm not worrying about where anything is going to lay. I'm just literally throwing down some color just to give everything some separation. And I'll do the same thing with the flower. I started with the W3, I think it was, and then I came in slightly with a W4 just because I really like my definition when it comes to even just giving it that separation. I have to have a little bit darker in there. That's just my style, how I roll. So I did come in with that W4, throw a little more flicks in there from all the edges of the flowers, the petals underneath. And I'll just get that finished up, and that just helps separate everything. So it's not just big one white blob on my card, I guess is how I was looking at it. And then that W4 over the leaves too. So that just really helped me. And I really like the stitching that's on these leaves. This is a really pretty stamp set. Anything with stitching I absolutely love. So these flowers were right up my alley. And then once I have that on there, I can kind of start looking at where I want to place everything with my card. This is the finished background that I have right now, which I'll be putting onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. And this is how I'm going to kind of hide that. It didn't quite work out. I guess if maybe I went with a lucky clover, it would have been more appealing to me. So I'm just going to hide that twisted citron with my flowers. And I really like that swoosh of purple that's in the sky. So I can go ahead, once I know where I want everything, I'm going to go ahead and attach this to the card base. Get that laid out. And then I can start looking at where I want this. I want my flower popped up, so I can go ahead and attach the leaves, and I'm using my flower as kind of a guide where that's going to go. And then I can attach foam squares to the back of my flower just to give dimension to my card. And then I like to use tweezers to help line up exactly where I want that to go. So now I need a sentiment, and I'm going to use You the Best die set. This has the word dies, then it also has a layering die that goes with it. I really like these sentiments. These are from CZ Design. That's available at the Simon Says Stamp Store, and I just love her dies, her sentiments. They are so funny and so simple. Definitely one of my favorite go-to stamp sets when it comes to the sentiments. So I went ahead and cut that out of some Simon Says Stamp glitter cardstock. And then I'm cutting the shadow out with some vellum. Just I wanted to use the shadow, and I didn't want to use a color cardstock to take away from that galaxy background. So I thought the vellum would be just a nice touch so I could still see everything, and yet that kind of separated my sentiment from the card. And definitely tweezers handy in this type of situation to hold those in. And I like to use the Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. This is a really great adhesive because it has a nice fine tip on it. It has a really great hold, and it dries clear. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know I am totally in love with this adhesive, and I like to stock up on it when I can. So I use that to attach to my vellum. And then I'm also going to go ahead and attach the vellum to my card, and same thing using this adhesive, and I'm going right where the letters are on that set so that you won't see anything from the front. And then I'll just push that down really good, make sure that's well adhered to the card. Okay, and then a couple finishing touches is adding some sequins. Just had to have some sparkle to my card. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a few of them and place them around my card. And I will also be using the Nouveau Deluxe adhesive for this as well. Like I said, dries clear, so you're not going to see anything but the sequins once that's all attached. In an afterthought, I kind of wish I would have used perfect pearls on the back of my card too, just for a little bit more sparkle. I thought it needed a little bit more, but I didn't want to overdo it since the galaxy background is pretty powerful. So still turned out great. I'm still very happy with it. And I can just finish getting those attached. And here comes my sparkle. I just had to add sparkles. So I'm using this glimmer pen, and be careful because what I did is it wasn't coming out very well. So I gave it a good squeeze, except squeeze it on a scratch piece of paper because I ended up with this huge blob in the middle of my flower. So in my pictures, you'll see I have this really shiny shimmery spot in the middle of my flower. I still like it. It's great. It's a lot of shimmer, but oops. Oh well, still works out great. And that finishes off this card. So I have my galaxy as the main focal point on this one. Now for my second card, this was actually an afterthought that I had while editing the video for the first part, was making the flowers galaxy background. So I did super speed this up for this portion of the card because it's a lot of the same techniques. The only difference is that I'm going to be making the flowers the galaxy and not the background. So I kind of figured out how big my flower was going to be and the leaves, and I threw down picked raspberry and lucky clover I tried out this time. And I'm still going to use the blueprint sketch and the black soot, adding that in there. Trying not to go in too much to cover up those colors. And what's funny is I think this is my favorite out of the two, and this was the afterthought. So this is a great way, and any ink combination would work for these. I think this is something that would really be cool to do with, pinks and oranges. That would be a really pretty flower combination. And it's actually pretty quick to go together. So same thing, I did my water splotches. I'm doing my flicks of paint to give those speckled looks on there for that galaxy look. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my flowers over these. So this is just kind of a matter of lining up where your ink is and where you want it to be on your flower. And I'll have to stamp the leaf twice, which is fine. But I'm going to use VersaFine black ink. That is a really nice, thick, I guess, black ink. It does take a little bit longer to dry. It is a little bit more wet of an ink, but it's great for stamping on top of the oxides. So you can see they're a really nice crisp black. I don't even have to go over it a second time like I normally would with everything. So I just clean off my one leaf there and lay that down on the other strip of green there for my background and stamp that out again. And then, like I said, if you have coordinating dies, that would be perfect for these. And since I didn't trust this going through my scan and cut, I'm actually going to hand cut these flowers. So here I'm just adding black for a border there. So I'm just going to go around. I'm making these pieces smaller to handle when I'm cutting them. So that's what you're seeing here, seeing me do. And then I'm going to fussy cut. I'm going to save you a lot of time there and not show you the whole entire fussy cutting process, but I did leave a border a little bit on the edge of all of these. And I am leaving a lot of white space. I haven't been leaving white space on my cards lately, so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to give me some white. And I did have that piece of black cardstock just as a nice border. So now I'm just kind of lining up how I want this to be. I changed the orientation of my card versus what you saw from the first one. And I'm loving how these flowers came out, and especially against that stark white. This is just really grabbing the attention. I'm using the same die as I did before, the U de Best, and I do have a vellum piece cut for that shadow area, which I guess I really didn't need against the white cardstock, but I just thought I would kind of be consistent since I already had the vellum out yet. And then this is another stamp set from CC Design, and this was the EMPHATIC stamp set. A lot of really cool sentiments on here that are just really fun. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that on my card. I just kind of simplified the process. I didn't feel like digging out more cardstock or embossing powder. So I'm just lining up in my Misty tool where everything is going to be so I have enough room for my sentiment to be. And I like using the Misty corners to help me line up my sentiment straight. So you'll see that here in a second. I'll come in and I just kind of push that sentiment down so it's going to be straight. It kind of lines up with the edge there of the Misty corners. I was trying to get a good fit. I actually should have dug out my bigger Misty. I had the mini Misty just kind of sitting right next to me. So I should have dug that out. But this still worked out really good. And then just stamping that in black ink. And now I can get everything attached. So same thing, I'm going to use the Nuvo glue to attach this to the card. And even if some glue squishes out a little bit, you're not going to see it because it dries clear. So getting my card base attached and my leaves, like I said, I really like how these came out. I actually kind of like this better than my first card, and this was the afterthought. That's what I just get the biggest kick out of is, I was like, why not make some galaxy flowers? So I did. And same thing, using some foam squares just to pop that up. So I really enjoyed making these cards. I love anything to do with ink blending. I hope you enjoyed both of these ideas something to give a try, especially doing the flowers out of just some regular ink blending and not even having to color them. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please go ahead, give it a big thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch you in the next video.